Hey, everybody. Welcome to Away Games Podcast, a Chicago Cubs podcast hosted by two stand-up comedians from Illinois, but who live in New York now. I'm one of them. I'm Adam Amwala.
I'm Kevin. I'm the other one, and this is the first one in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I guess it is. This is an away game even for Kevin himself.
Yes, it is.
Taking his new equipment on the road.
Yeah.
So we are sitting on the couch at my house, drinking vodka. So this is a big deal because I'm drinking. Which I usually
it is
don't.
a big deal.
Usually I'm having the seltzer, but not with anything else.
Yes, and now it is a seltzer with vodka in it. We're recording this on Sunday, and as I saw you tweeted from the @awaygamespod account, that this is a Cubs podcast, but we do both root for the Bears. We are watching the Bears later today, so this is a bit of a time travel episode because you all already know what happened.
Exactly.
But we don't.
Some of you may be very sad. Hopefully you're happy. And in other news, right to our left, my small dog, Cookie, is currently humping a bear toy that she has, which I don't like. I'm not sure if that's a good omen or a bad omen.
She's been going for a while,
She's
though.
been going at it, yeah.
Since I got here.
The fact that she is spayed has not stopped her one bit. She's still...
God
if anything,
dang.
it's more fun now. There's no risk of,
Yeah, that's true. She could. It's like how people always go nuts and just bang all over the place once they get to a retirement home.
Right,
You know how they're all hooking up?
I never thought that we'd be discussing the increasing STD rates amongst elderly people on this podcast.
She's being safe about it. I mean, if she gets anything from that bear, then you have a lawsuit against whoever makes that bear,
exactly.
I think. It's a pretty good stuffed animal. It had chlamydia. That was weird. This is the kind of talk you get in the offseason.
Exactly,
Especially when the Cubs have been as quiet as they have been. They
signed Graveman. That's a huge move.
Yeah, exactly. They have completely skipped
Mark Loretta
over.
is the big news of the offseason.
Mark Loretta is the big news. With Graveman, it's like they have completely they've committed so hard to doing nothing for this year that they've already moved on to signings for 2020 with because that's what Graveman is.
It's basically Drew Smiley 2.0.
Drew
it's the
Smiley
exact
with
same
less
situation.
stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
So
basically.
theoretically, they'll trade him next offseason before throwing one pitch for the Cubs.
Yes, exactly. And then so we can pay $18 million for someone
When is the Cubs convention? It's coming up, right?
It's coming up. Is it next weekend?
There's going to be some angry people there. If nothing has happened between now and then,
right?
There's going to be a lot of
yes. It could be. I think it could definitely be testy. Theo had an interview with The Score. I don't know if you heard any of it.
I didn't, but was he forthcoming, or was it kind of like, we're going to see what happens?
He was a little testy, I think.
Really?
Like a little bit. It's like, Evan Altman, great Cubs insider guy, great follow on Twitter if you don't follow him already, noted that during the interview he was distracted by texts at least 3 times, which is in theory good. It's like, okay, good, someone's talking to Theo, unless it was just like, his wife or kids.
It's like anytime they interview like Matthew Berry or something, or like one of those people on ESPN who like they're always looking at their phone all the time. Maybe Adam Schefter's like a better example.
Schefter is probably like the number one as far as like
Berry's more the fantasy guy. I think I was thinking of like just someone who's like so locked into trade updates that even during an interview about trades, they're looking at their phone to check updates.
Yes, that's basically what was happening with Theo on Saturday. It seemed he said that the what we know as the luxury tax, the competitive balance tax, that would not. That wouldn't be the ultimate like limit to what they can do. They weren't governed by that, but they do have a budget, which is basically saying that it's one way of saying it doesn't matter, and the other way is saying, oh no, it actually does, because the budget is governed by the CBT tax, whatever, yada yada.
But I'm sure.
I
mean, Epstein has been through this before with the Red Sox in the sense of like, you do the impossible for a team, and then people very quickly. It's not like they're ungrateful, but the expectations change so quickly that it's like, if any of us had been asked, let's say, the last time the Bears were in the playoffs, if it's January of 2011, and you're going to tell me that the Cubs are going to have a four-year stretch where they win 90-plus games every year, and they get to the NLCS twice and win a World Series, no one's complaining about that.
No, and I think it is okay to say I think there are other things that should happen right now in the moment, because you don't just want to go on cruise control as a fan. That's no fun. But I do think when you say it's not like people are necessarily ungrateful, I think certainly a lot. The online world, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. The loudest people and like outliers are the most. are the ones you see the most, right? So there definitely are some ungrateful people for sure, and there are people, and I think some of them are within the Cubs organization. Just looking at how Joe Maddon is sort of being treated, I think people take Joe Maddon for granted. I think we're taking this front office for granted. We Cubs fans at large a little bit, but there's not a lot to be super supportive of this offseason. You can like the Cole Hamels signing,
right?
But even that's a weird signing if it precludes you from doing everything else,
right?
Because one thing the Cubs do have is starting pitching depth, and I do. This is the first time I've been talking on mic while scratching a doggy, but yeah, I think it's weird.
Well, and it's also the Cole Hamels thing. It doesn't seem. It's not as sexy as signing somebody that wasn't there before because when he started pitching the way he was at the end of last year, it went from being like, oh, there's no way they'll have him next year to a foregone conclusion that they would.
Right. And it was surprising. I mean, very few pitchers in the world are as good as Cole Hamels was for the Cubs, on a full-time basis. So, I think it, and there are still, as we record this now, before the Bears game on Sunday, there's still, I think, a week and a half until the Cubs convention, which I'll be at. Our friend Ken Schultz.
You are going to be there.
Yeah.
I don't think I did that.
Oh, okay, cool. Well, yes, I am. Myself and my brother Patrick are attending. That was my Christmas gift to him.
That's great.
And then Ken Schultz told me that maybe that's who. Why I thought I told you I was. We're in a group text with Ken, and he will also be attending the convention. I've never been before.
Yeah, I have not either. No.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it could be bad. I don't even know. But I do enjoy.
How bad could it be to hang around a bunch of people who love the Cubs?
Yeah, exactly. I think if nothing else, that's where there's a lot of fun Cub Q&A player panels and stuff. That's where Wilson Contreras said one of the most fun clips we had from last year was him explaining what he said to John Lester. Just
right.
Throw the fucking ball to first, pick the fucking guy off or whatever he said.
Yeah.
He said fuck at least twice.
Yeah.
And everyone lost their minds. So
I mean, if the floor is your experience at the winter meetings, I think it's going to be better than that, and you had fun doing that.
That's true. The winter meetings, there was a filter on that though, in that like only the me-level psychopath was there, Right. Whereas I think there's going to be more loud, weird, dummy jabronis at this one. I mean, but
maybe,
but
I think you have to be a big Cubs fan to pay money to go to the Cubs convention.
Totally,
right? You're
totally.
Not, a casual fan is not going to go.
I think it'll be mostly good.
Yeah.
I think it'll be I think the vast majority of people at the convention will be a lot of fun. But yeah, we'll see. So I'll be there.
Bring some business cards, baby.
I'll start dealing them.
Just throw them into the crowd.
Yeah, make it rain. Everyone just starts booing me. Yeah. So that, but I do think you're right that if nothing of substance happens between now and then, that the tenor of the questions could be a little more sour than they've been in recent years.
Well, I mean, one of the few things that we have to talk about today is that Britton has now been re-signed by the Yankees. So that means Miller and Britton are gone. And those were two guys that I really had kind of personally focused on and wanted at least one of them.
In a dream off season, yeah. I think that's what we said at the beginning was we wanted Harper and one of those elite lefties like to bring into the bullpen.
My boy Randy Rosario better up his game because I don't know who else is out there.
Yeah, I think he is. I believe the guy we got for Tommy LaStella, Connor Lillis White, who is almost the whitest name you can have because it has white,
like Lily White,
and it's almost Lily White, hyphenated. Is a guy who I like. I like the numbers he's put up.
Is he a prospect, or is he like
he's
he
a little
the team?
older? He could make the team. Yeah, I think he's basically like mid 20s, like not a young prospect, but but there's you're not looking at. I think most of there's not like a truly elite lefty reliever left out there. The main relievers out there are guys you don't expect the Cubs to be in on anyway, like Kimbrel, Ottavino. Right. Even David Robertson signed. He's off the market too.
By the way, did you read that article about him being a piece of shit?
Yeah, and I'll say all the Yankees, they all had to vote for it. So yeah,
that's
go
awful.
Ahead. Explain it.
Well, I mean, if I'm understanding it properly, the players meet to decide who gets a share of the like playoff money that they make.
Right, among like coaches and just staff for the team,
staff
traveling
people,
secretaries, assistants,
trainers, whatever it is.
Right.
and the Yankees. The Cubs actually were the top, I think.
Cubs have been
of like taking care of their people, which is really cool.
At least 2 years in a row, and maybe more than that. I haven't seen numbers before that, but the Cubs have been the most generous team in terms of awarding the greatest number of playoff shares.
Right.
And the more shares you award, obviously this is how math works. The less money each share is going to be, but
and the Cubs were very generous. Like when they won, I think they gave rings to everybody. Like even Tim Fedorovich probably got a ring. Like anybody who played like an inning for the Cubs got a ring.
And like guys beyond, and it wasn't just like GM president guys. Like if it seemed like if you worked for the team full time, you were getting a ring.
I mean, they weren't giving it to like hot dog vendors, but like pretty much beyond that, anyone who worked for them consistently.
If you win all your full-time hot dog vendors, there should be one ring that everyone gets to take home for a night, like the Stanley Cup, and you pass it around, you know? If you can't give it to everybody.
Or award it to like the top hot dog seller.
There you go. Yeah, that would be interesting.
That was my favorite part of Rookie of the Year, was that when the GM gets fired, he still sells hot dogs. Yeah. It's a classic like little kid movie thing where it's like, he wouldn't, he got in trouble, so he accepted his job as a hot dog vendor, and that's what he's doing now.
He didn't just leave because he's rich anyway. That's funny. It's been so long since I've seen that movie. I feel like I've seen a couple baseball movies recently, a couple of the like all-time classics, and have you seen The Natural lately?
No, I should rewatch it.
It makes no sense.
Oh, really? It's not good?
It's fine. If the music of The Natural wasn't in it, it would be, it would drop 3-letter grades as a movie.
And also the music has kind of been ruined for me because the Yankees now have co-opted it and they play it when they hit home runs.
The greedy Yankees. To the point you were saying before, the Yankees awarded less playoff shares than anybody. Their assistant hitting coach didn't get either a share or a full share. They might have given him a partial share, but what a greedy fuck.
And apparently David Robertson was the one who kind of spearheaded that, and it was like very contentious.
Yeah. He was basically the player rep. So he chaired the meeting where the players voted and decided who got those shares. And it's incredible to imagine being that level of greedy
when you already make that much money.
It's several tens of thousands of dollars, I think it was. And that's the kind of thing for the people who they're not giving the shares to, it could change their life.
Well, that's exactly the point. I think it's the same thing when you hear about like celebrities who like don't leave a tip or something. Like that money means so much more to whoever you're leaving it for than yourself. Then you clearly are just an asshole. Yeah,
Robertson, it seems like a piece of shit, as far as I can tell, unless he somehow was overwhelmed by every other piece of shit on the Yankees, which if so, he should come out and say that. Because
I'm all for anything that makes me continue to keep hating the Yankees.
It makes me hate him a lot more now because there are certain guys on the team I thought I liked. Aaron Judge seemed like a decent guy, but that could be just the Derek Jeter thing where when you do nothing, people just assume you're fine.
Right.
Where, if there's someone who has no personality in a group of friends, you're like, he's nice. Is he?
Does Aaron Judge give gift baskets to the people he sleeps with?
I mean, he should continue the legacy.
Yeah, Judge. Yeah, Jeets.
Yeah. It should. The Yankees are all about tradition. He should take up the mantle. Yeah. So yeah, it seems like David Robertson's a good guy to root against now. Who is with Philadelphia?
Yes. So basically, any of the top tier relievers, it doesn't seem like the Cubs are going to be in on any of them.
No, because they're so top tier.
They're either gone or they're not. The Cubs are not going to pay $100 million for Craig Kimbrell.
No, they're not going in on Kimbrell. The Ottavino is going to sign for pretty good money, it seems like. And they're all from the right side, where the Cubs, in theory, that's where the strong side of their bullpen is too.
Right.
So, it really is right now. It looks like we're just waiting for Real Muto to be traded somewhere. And then that could decide who is fully in on the other two big guys. And those seem to be...
There hasn't been a lot going on in general. I mean, I think the Mets traded for Keon Broxton yesterday, I saw. But beyond that, like...
And today they traded Kevin Plawecki for 2 prospects to Cleveland.
Now that's some hot news right there.
This is what we're dealing with right now in early January of 2019.
Well, it does seem like the market is waiting for Bryce and Manny, obviously.
It is. And it seems like industry reports lately, over the past week, have been... And one was coming from Jim Bowden, who's just like blatantly wrong a lot. But he did used to be the GM of the Nationals.
Yeah.
And he reported that the Nationals are very in on Bryce right now.
Really?
Still. Which, honestly, if the Nationals sign Bryce, I'll root for the Nationals over anyone but the Cubs because they're the only fucking team spending their money.
Right.
They're one of two teams, along with the Red Sox, I believe, that are luxury tax like repeat offenders going into this year. They already signed Corbin for all that money, and if they sign Bryce too, they're going way over.
I get the impression that Rizzo is a very good GM.
Yeah,
don't you?
I do too. Yes, I think Rizzo's a GM, a good GM, and I think the Lerner family. I'm sure they're a bunch of assholes, but they're spending their money, and that's all I can really ask of an owner. You know?
Yeah.
Like back when Steinbrenner was the only owner in the league treating the sport like it was a sport without a salary cap. That's one thing I always said when people hate Steinbrenner. I'm like, yeah, he's clearly an asshole, but if I was a Yankee fan, like, he buys everybody.
Yeah, that's why you want someone like him or like Mark Cuban to run your team.
That's exactly why I wanted Mark Cuban. Also because Mark Cuban's like clearly a douche of some sort, but like, among billionaires, low-level douche. One of the least douchey billionaires.
I like to imagine that when Mark Cuban talks to players, he approaches it the same way that he does on Shark Tank, where he's like, if he doesn't want a player, he ends the negotiation by saying, and for that reason, I'm out.
Yeah. And then Ottavino's just like, okay, talk to my agent. Why are you telling me this? I'm a man of the people. Yeah, so that it does seem like now, before I was saying my picks were Dodgers for Bryce 1, Cubs 2, and then the field. Now I'm starting to feel like Nats and Dodgers 1-2, Cubs on the outside there. And again, I say this with no information,
right?
Except for what everyone else.
Well,
is
perhaps
able to read.
Charles Meow will be at the convention, and you can talk to him.
Charles Meow, and this is a sad state of affairs. Charles Meow, if you guys know, you should follow him on Twitter. It is a cat who has broken actual news early before, specifically when it comes to Cubs, but also with other baseball signings. And this week, the offseason has been so slow. He started talking about like mid-level relievers the Cubs are in on, dropping some Oliver Perez,
God.
sort of rumors. So. That's
so
where we're at.
You mentioned you have some
Oliver.
sort of Doug Glanville story. What is this?
Oh, if this was a thing, I heard it was on the Score on Saturday. Just a fun Doug Glanville thing, and then we'll talk about Mark Loretta. But the Glanville thing was that he is friends with, I believe it's Oates from Hall & Oates.
What?
He made a bet in so they're Hall & Oates. They're Philly soul. That is their genre, and. Glanville made a bet with his 6th grade teacher that he said, if I make the major leagues, you have to introduce me to Hall & Oates. The 6th grade teacher was married to a guy who was like editor of Guitar Magazine or something, so he knew Hall & Oates.
This is the weirdest start to a story I've ever heard.
It's really weird.
Doug Glanville, when he was in 6th grade, his teacher knew Hall & Oates, and he said, if I make it to the majors,
you got to introduce me. And then he called in that favor like 15 years later. And then so he met Oates. And then now he goes to like, apparently either Hall or Oates has like a big house party every year.
It's Hall. It's called Daryl's house.
There you go.
And we actually went.
You went?
Now it's very strange.
If you go this year, you'll see Doug. He said he's going on Valentine's Day.
So I haven't been to the real Daryl's house, but it's in Pawling, New York, which is like 2 hours north of here. And Allie's, my wife's dad, is like a huge fan of this show. It was on like Fuse or something like that. Okay. So basically, it's like Daryl Hall invites people over to his house, and they like jam together.
I mean, that's cool.
But then they've made it into a bar or restaurant sort of thing where they have people perform. So I've been to what's called Daryl's house. I've not met Oates or Hall.
So there's apparently going to be like a big show there
on
Valentine's, and Doug's
going. Glanville kind of was the Oates of the Cubs outfit.
Yeah, I think so. I loved him. I love that flat out speed.
I love that triple he hit in the NLCS in 03.
In his second stint with the Cubs, I'm a big Doug Glanville
and
guy.
He's good on is he on MLB Network or what is he on? Or I guess just Cubs stuff.
I think he does local network stuff, but he should be.
I like him though.
He should be doing more national stuff. He's smart. He's funny. He's got good weird stories. The fact that he's just good friends with Oates is great.
That's really funny.
And then the more salient Cub news, I suppose, is that this week the Cubs finally named a new bench coach in Mark Loretta.
Yeah, and so was that kind of out of nowhere, or
a little bit?
Yeah, like has Maddon Maddon wouldn't have coached him. Right?
No, they.
I associate him most with the Padres. Is that right?
He had a great year with the Padres. I think he hit like 330 with the Padres one year. He was a career 295 hitter, and I know that because one of my good friends is Loretta's cousin. And
does he know Oates also?
He probably does know Oates. I'll ask my friend Nick Pride. Yeah, but I hosted a pilot for like a travel show this November, and one of the guys producing it was my friend Nick, and we were talking about his cousin Mark Loretta, and he says Loretta's a great guy, and he visited him when he was playing with the Padres.
Cool.
And he said he really hooked him up and stuff as far as just getting to see everything there. And he went to Northwestern, and that's where he met his wife. So they have some Chicago area roots that way. He's worked in front offices for the better part of 10 years, I think, and he had a long career, high batting average, obviously, high on base, not much slugging. But seems to be a smart guy that everybody likes.
Yeah.
So as far as a bench coach goes, I think it's a really good signing.
It's interesting. I when I think about Mark Loretta, the first thing I associate with him is just like a solid hitter who always had a reputation as being a good guy. And I'm not really basing that on anything that I've heard, but that was just like my perception of him always. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and he's one of those guys who I feel that way about a lot of guys who they have a long career. They're not stars, but they always end up being traded to contenders,
Right.
Like halfway through a year. They sign...
Like a not as good Zobrist, probably.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good comp because he played all around the infield. I think he played a little short, but mostly second and third. And he... I think he played for the Red Sox. He might have even been with that title-winning team or just after.
Yeah.
But played for the Red Sox, played for the Brewers for a long time, played for the Astros, I think, in 2 different stints. But, it seems like he's a smart guy. He's sort of in the A.J. Hinch mold of a guy who... long career, respected player, and then went to a front office, and then spent a good amount of time learning about things from that side, and then moving his way to the bench. So it's interesting because this is a guy who is sort of, is a guy who would be a candidate for manager jobs almost immediately if he wasn't already.
Yeah.
And I heard him talking on the radio, and he said basically it wasn't on his radar till the Cubs contacted him. He talked to his family, and then he ended up talking to Maddon on the phone for a bit, and they seem to get along and stuff. So how does this play into what a couple weeks ago when you and your brother were doing the pod, and you were talking about the potential of someone like a Raul Ibanez, but then Maddon possibly being threatened as is this person my successor? Right.
Do you think Loretta would be in that model of someone that the Cubs would maybe move forward with if they like him a lot this year and don't want to retain Maddon?
I think kinda, yeah. I think it's. Who knows? He hasn't coached one day with them yet, but his profile is the type that it wouldn't shock you to see him as a major league manager. But Joe Maddon, this is I think maybe the talk about Loretta this week, who I am excited about. Although I am not blaming Mark Loretta for who he is, but I would have liked to have seen. If everything was equal, like a Spanish speaking, and maybe he speaks Spanish. I don't even know. But I like the idea if since the team is half guys who are Spanish as a first language or close to it. I like the idea of a bench coach having that angle too, which Ibanez would have brought. That I'm not sure Loretta does. Although that's
or a guy like Beltran, but also some he wouldn't. I don't think he would accept anything that's not a manager job.
Right. And he and Ibanez I feel had a reputation slightly above Loretta when it comes to that. But I do think Loretta is a guy who would be considered to manage. But I think just hearing people talk about Joe Maddon, and part of it was I was listening to, I was working out and listening to The Score, and Steve Rosenblum, who is bad, so that's part of it. But talking about, well, man, if the team's not doing great on June 1st, Loretta could be managing June 1st. Fuck off. Joe Maddon is a Hall of Fame manager that has been great for the Cubs for 4 years. He was great with the Rays before that. At some point, it's not an accident that he's been great the whole friggin' time.
And just to recap here, if I'm correct with these numbers, Maddon's 4 seasons managing the Cubs, 97 wins, 103 wins, 92 wins, 95 wins.
Yes.
He should not be anywhere near a hot seat.
No, he shouldn't. But he is. I get that he is, just in that they said they aren't extending him. But I think Maddon is correctly a guy who's kind of like, when we were talking about the bench coach being someone of a stature to threaten him, I think Maddon is a guy where he's like, I'm not threatened by shit.
Right.
Like, I'm one of the highest paid managers in the world. I won a World Series with the Cubs. Do you remember how hard that was? I'm going to the Hall of Fame. Hire whoever the fuck you want to be bench coach. And I think he's not even sweating being underappreciated, which I think he really is.
For some reason, though, I just have this impulse that, like, if the Cubs don't at least make it to the World Series this year, I feel like Maddon is not going to be back next year.
Just the vibe.
I don't know why I feel that way, but it's just the vibe that I get.
It's the vibe that I get too, and I don't know if it's necessarily World Series or bust, but it does seem like winning a World Series is the only way I would be like, oh, he's 100% coming back,
right?
Unless he just like decides to retire at that point, which would also be great because if Maddon wants to get off the grind of things, he can. Polish his Hall of Fame resume and go make a bunch of money working a lot less at any network,
totally. And he would be like an ideal person to be scooped up and, give his witticisms on air.
On everything, yeah.
So if I told you that rather than get rid of Maddon this year, these 5 years have been the beginning of a Mike Scioscia, 18 years managing the Cubs, would you like that? Or would you say that's probably a little much?
I mean, Maddon, I think 18 years would be a lot, but the main thing I think is whoever you hire next, the thought that they would be as good as Joe Maddon in their career is less than, a 5% chance? I don't care if it's David Ross, Mark Loretta, Raul Ibanez, Joe Girardi, who I don't want. Any of these guys, whoever we're talking about, if they are as good as Maddon, that's a 1 in 100 chance, 1 in 50 chance. There's just not many managers in the world in modern baseball who've been as good as Joe Maddon. So I think it's easy to dream on the next thing. So I would like Maddon to stay around longer, even though he does drive me bonkers sometimes, but so does every other manager ever. And most of the managers who've driven me bonkers don't win like this.
Right.
So,
just make sure it's not Matheny.
God, I would be like, Theo's been kidnapped. Something happened. We need to intervene. He needs to be impeached. That's it. But outside of the, me sweating Maddon more than he's sweating it, probably, I think the Loretta hire seems to be good. As far as from what we can tell now, cool, Yeah.
I guess that's mostly it.
I think that's it. That's all I got. Cool. Slow off season.
Very slow off season.
But I think we filled the time pretty good.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe something interesting will happen before Wednesday, and we'll have to hop back on real quick, or at least in the next couple weeks, and then I'm sure we'll do a full recap of how the winter meetings were.
Hell yeah!
And who you rubbed elbows with?
Oh yeah, the Cubs convention time. Heck yeah!
What did I say? Winter meetings?
Yeah.
See what happened? This is why I can't drink. I'm having one drink and I'm off my game.
Vodka soda in. I know. You're having a drink and I'm not even done with mine. And I haven't drank in days.
Oh, my God.
Which is wild for me. I blacked out really bad on New Year's Eve. I was talking to Adam about it. It's a problem. It's made me rethink things. So, slow off season, folks. You can follow us at awaygamespod on Twitter, at awaygamespod on Instagram, awaygamespodcast at gmail.com.
Rate us on iTunes.
That would be nice.
It.
A rate and a special thanks to Sarah Sanchez, I would say, she gave us a nice little end of year shout out. Sarah Sanchez of Bleed Cubby Blue, and read her stuff. It's great. Thanks everybody.